how to make your work sound as good as it actually is. And I love this topic. I think it is so necessary and so important for STEM professionals because we often, I would say, we do not take credit for our work. We do not own it because the work that we do, it's really important and really, I would say, on the edge of innovation many times, whether you're working in engineering, developer, or scientist, or whatever it is that you're doing, but we are often the ones that move these things forward. So what I feel when I listen to STEM professionals talking, they just say stuff like, yeah, and we built this algorithm, and we did this, and then this protocol, and the experiment, and so on. And since I understand, most of the times I'm able to understand what they're talking about, I'm like, come on, this is your work, you have to sell it better. And this is something that I feel most STEM professionals lack in terms of skills, which also makes sense because at university or in grad school, we are never actually taught how to sell our work and how to make sure that people who are outside our fields, and those are the people who actually are the important ones that have the money, that are the decision makers, how to make sure that those people see what our work is and see how brilliant our work is in terms of innovation, in terms of science, and so on. So what I see STEM professionals typically doing is just to, I would say, how to put it? I would say just vomit data. They are just like, okay, this is what we did, right? But unfortunately, this is clearly not enough because what we work on as STEM professionals, it's often quite complex. And not only that, but it's most importantly abstract. So for people who are outside our fields, they are very unlikely to understand what is it that we are actually doing unless we put intentional effort into explaining how that work impacts them directly. And this is actually what works and what I've seen countless of times with my clients and even with myself. If you want to make sure that people see how brilliant your work is, the only way you can do that is by connecting that abstract thing to something that feels tangible to them. There are two reasons for that. The first one is because when things start getting complex and people have to think, they don't like thinking. Like the less they have to think when you're explaining your work, the better. The more likely it is that they are actually going to follow you through your entire talk, meeting, or presentation. And the other thing is basically making sure that we make it tangible. So when you say the word algorithm or, I don't know, protocol or something like that, that sounds very jargonic, very, very fancy. The problem with those words is that to people outside of our fields, it sounds simply like noise. Like they struggle understanding what an algorithm actually is, what a protocol actually does, what is it that you actually do. And this is where you have to make it tangible. Because if first of all, it's too complex, and second of all, they do not understand what is the impact of the work, it's very unlikely they're going to say, yeah, take my money and do some experiments. Take my money for that project that you have in mind. So it is our work and our job to make sure we can turn this into something that makes sense to them. And this is actually the number one skill, I would say, for STEM professionals if you want your work recognized. Because of course, if you work with your teammates, if you talk to your teammates, they know what you're working on because they are working on the same thing. But the problem comes when you have to explain that work to someone who is completely outside of your universe, your microcosmos, and then they are like, okay, but what is it that you actually do? So there in that situation, it is your job to make sure that your work is tangible to them. A very, very tangible example now. For example, if you're talking to a CEO, you cannot talk in terms of protocols, algorithms, data, and so on. You have to talk in very tangible terms. For example, how this specific thing that you did saved money, how this specific thing that you did made some process easier or optimized it or made it more efficient in some way. So those are the things that people can sort of feel, right? So something that is tangible and understandable to them, and most importantly, something they care about. So if I had to give one piece of advice to STEM professionals, it would be and who want their work to be recognized for the brilliant work that it is, I would say you have to make an additional effort to make that work understandable and tangible and connect it to something your audience already cares about. Because that's, I would say, the only way they're actually going to listen to you. Now, this sounds much easier, I would say, said than done, because it requires you to completely shift your mindset. And we are trained in thinking in these terms of cause and consequence. So it requires some time and intentional effort to make sure that you start thinking in this sort of business impact mindset. Having said that, this is actually exactly what I teach STEM professionals how to do. So I work as a STEM communication coach, and I help STEM professionals really emphasize the importance and the brilliance of their work by helping them explaining it in a very tangible and straightforward way. So if you're interested in this kind of coaching, I want to invite you to join my coaching program, and I will leave a link down below where you can schedule a completely free discovery call with me, where we can have sort of this intro coaching session where you can explain to me what are your current challenges, your current struggles in your STEM career communication wise, and of course see if we are a good fit to work together. So I hope that you found this video useful, that the next time you have to explain your work, you will stop for a moment, think about how to make it tangible to the people who are listening to you. And of course, as always, see you in the next few days in another video. Bye bye.